and children lived in this very spot 10 centuries ago. But how is it still standing? Just like today, the 11th century Christians knew they couldn't just dig haphazardly into the hillside. So throughout the region, every 18 feet of digging required a supporting wall or column, and this monastery was no exception. This medieval form of building codes helped ensure the world's first monastery could survive 10 centuries later. When the Ottoman Turks conquered Cappadocia and stumbled upon this subterranean world, they were impressed with the engineering that kept these structures standing. And even more impressive was that the ancient frescoes on the walls hadn't been exposed to the elements, preserving the stories of the world's first Christians underground.
We have these famous Cappadocian stories painted on the wall. They are from the Bible, of course, but these are local stories.
All right.
Someone tried to do a fresco, but you can't even see the face, you know, very primitive.
But graves and crude frescoes are only just the beginning. Not far from the Snake Church, there's another church with even more elaborate frescoes.
Isn't this beautiful?
Gorgeous.
This church was built around the same time as the Snake Church, but its frescoes came later, showing just how much more advanced the Christian artists had become.
These are local artists painting these churches, the intermediate ones.
But very skilled hand.
Very skilled hand, but you really don't see lots of color combination. Reds and blues, basically natural colors. And these churches were normally used to teach Christianity to illiterate people.
That means this 1,000-year-old room was much more than a church. It actually doubled as a school of Christianity. In the Middle Ages, it was very rare to find people who could read. So these intricate frescoes were used like a textbook, telling the stories of the Bible in pictures. If this church was a message to the local people, the next one was a tribute to God himself. It was the biggest and most ornate of all the churches in Göreme, and for 7 centuries it has remained intact, thanks to the strong Tuka walls into which it was carved.
Wow. Oh, it's really amazing.
Yeah, you can see the difference in sophistication, detail, the color, and ceilings are high.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, this is spectacular.
So this is the first part of the church from 11th, 12th centuries, and these are the frescoes about the biblical stories. So this is the life of Jesus from his birth to his crucifixion.
There's so much detail, so much work involved.
The frescoes on the ceilings and walls of this cave-turned church rivaled that of any church throughout the Byzantine Empire. Some of the world's finest artists were sent from Constantinople to paint these spectacular murals, a sign of Cappadocia's importance to this emerging religion. But it was the engineering used to build this church that was even more amazing.
This is cathedral architecture.
Right.
I mean, the depth and the height, and there are double layers of columns and inner niches and
They've gone to the trouble of
details.
This church resembles the layout of those of the Eastern Roman Empire. It had an apse at one end to symbolize an opening to the kingdom of God, a main central prayer area supported by 4 columns, and 2 smaller prayer areas to the sides. The design is similar to the churches found in Constantinople, but this one was carved into the ground entirely by hand. Driving by Göreme Valley in Cappadocia, few realize the holes in the hills lead to a massive monastery, the first of its kind in the world. From Christian classrooms and massive basilicas hidden inside caves, to blood-drenched pagan battlefields more than 18 feet beneath the ground, centuries of constant digging created another world here, and I had barely scratched the surface. Up next, buried ancient technology that inspired engineering masterpieces. And later, a newly discovered secret left from the Silk Road for the first time ever on TV.
Oh my God, it's a whole world in here.
Turkey's largest city, Istanbul, is the only city in the world that is split between two continents, Europe and Asia. The Hittites, the early Christians, the Romans, and Mongols had all ruled Cappadocia, adding their own layers to its massive underground. Today, every house, shop, or road here could hide an entrance into one of these lost worlds. And Elvan was taking me to a town that sits on top of a 5-level subterranean city extending nearly 4 miles. But it's not the size that's most impressive. The 1900-year-old architecture sits 20 feet beneath the ground and actually inspired some of the greatest engineering feats on the planet. Mehmet Osmanbaşılı, the mayor of Ayanas, a small village outside the city of Kayseri, agreed to take me into the bowels of the sealed-off underworld.
Let's go down.
It just so happens that the best way to get down is through the basement of the childhood home of one of the world's most influential architects.
Down here.
His name is Mimar Sinan.
After you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So, we are entering into his house here. This is where he lived.
They say this is the place when he opened his eyes as a baby, he saw these arches.
These arches here? Wow.
Yes.
So these were actually features of the house.
These arches are very important because those are the influence to his later life.
Mimar Sinan, born in 1489, right here in this house, went on to build some of the most impressive monuments of the Ottoman Empire. His most famous was the Süleymaniye Mosque. It was built for Sultan Süleyman and standing 170 feet tall, it's the largest mosque in Istanbul. It has one of the biggest unsupported domes in the world. Amazingly, a building of this size could never have been built without the engineering feat found right beneath Sinan's childhood home. It's a triple arch system. This system builds on the same idea as the simple Roman arch. The weight from above is distributed throughout the sides. So with 3 arches sharing a central axis, the load-bearing capacity triples as well. It's a simple but ingenious way to make the most of a single column. But why was the triple arch used here in the first place? This underground city is believed to have been one of the newer ones in the region, first inhabited by the Romans in the 2nd century. As each new generation moved in, they expanded the city both above ground and below. Nervous that the world up above could cave into the one below, they put triple arches throughout the underworld. The technique worked. 1900 years later, these 2nd century walls can still hold up the thousands of pounds bearing down on it from the modern town that continues to grow above.
And we go this way.
But there's something else that sets this city apart from the rest.
Man, look at these little amazing spaces. I mean, it's like a set piece.
Today, homeowners have blocked off spaces beneath their homes for storage. But 500 years ago, during Sinan's time, this system was an uninterrupted 3.5-mile-long subterranean factory.
I cannot get over how vast this whole underground of this house is. I mean, and this is what kind of room here?
They are making iron utensils in this room over here. They melt the iron in that hole.
Wow.